Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode of FPL Bulls and Bears. Very happy to have Praveen here, who's co-hosting this with me, and obviously I'm super excited to have two rival club supporters here as our guests for today's podcast. So, very warm welcome to Suraj and Gavin. How about we
Thank you,
start
Jeff.
off with you guys telling us about your favorite clubs and anything about yourselves that the wider community should know?
Sure, I'll begin. It's a good coincidence that we are going to have the biggest match between the two biggest rivals this week, and we are running against each other currently in the podcast. So to begin with, I'm a Liverpool fan, and I've been a Liverpool fan since. I mean, I don't even remember the year I was. Uh, I would say around 2006. Yeah, I would say 2006. I've been a Liverpool fan, and basically I've been a Liverpool fan because I have cousins who live in UK, and they have been following Liverpool since their childhood. So because of them, I've also been a Liverpool fan. And I've been playing FPL since 2010-11, I would say. And this was when I was working with Sports Interactive. Now we had our own league of our own, and with our colleagues over there. And when I started investing over there, then I saw that, okay, if I'm investing time on this and getting a return over there, so that's the reason I started becoming more interested in FPL and investing my time in it. So I would say that I playing with my friends have made me interested in joining other leagues as well. So that's how I came through this particular league.
That's brilliant, man, Suraj. And what about you, Gavin?
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm definitely a Man U supporter, Man United. Um, as you know, we've been in school together, so I've been playing football since I could remember. So I've always looked up to the Fergie golden era. You know, your Beck, Scholesy, Giggsy, all of them. You know, so that motivated me as a football player at the time, and never really got into FPL seriously. I was really into FIFA at the time. I really took my FIFA seriously, career mode and all of that. So I think that's what got me into the what you can possibly call the social media side of and the gaming aspect outside the pitch of football. And at some point of time, I did get into FPL. I don't remember which year exactly, but as I kept playing it year by year, I think in between I got a little more serious with it. But then as work came along, that kind of crashed a bit because it was really impossible for me to make my transfers on time and all of that. So I'm actually flying with one of the airlines over here in India. So we actually had a league called Underpaid Pilots League or something and something of those lines. Because I think all pilots will agree that we were always cribbing about something or the other. So we at that point we were cribbing about our salaries. So that's we're gonna name the league appropriately. And because of our ridiculous schedule, we keep landing at stupid hours, and I used to always land beyond the deadline hours, and it's difficult in between to get your transfers in before that. So yeah, that was a fun experience, but let's see how long that goes on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So guys, I'm just pulling up your highest overall ranks through the seasons. So as Gavin did mention, right? I think 17-18 was his best year, where he had a 94K overall rank. And I guess after that, we've pretty much been having a lot of those deadline issues that you mentioned, right? You've pretty much been in flight mode for a lot of your transfers. So yeah, and Suraj, I guess you've had a pretty good year in 2019, 2020, right? And before and after that, it's been a little wobbly. So as you guys would have seen in Praveen's podcast last week,
The
right?
reason behind I having a really good season 1920 is because that is the season Liverpool won the
Yeah,
Premier League.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
So
man.
yeah, my interest in FPL is, I would say, proportional with how Liverpool performs.
Wow, great. So, Praveen, do you want to ask these guys anything about their seasons before we move on to their philosophy and some of their teams?
Oh, not particularly about their season history, but it was interesting that Gavin is a United fan and he really pulled the trigger on triple captain Haaland last week, didn't he? So,
That was a
yeah,
no-brainer for me actually. I mean, because the way FPL has changed this year with the lack of double game weeks and all. I mean, Haaland last week was to me a no-brainer to triple captain, and
Right.
fortunately it paid off. So I'm happy about that part of it. But yeah, seeing Salah go was scaring me quite a bit, and then you had all the other guys, Palmer and everybody coming in and killing it.
Yeah,
So yeah, that wasn't
yeah.
fun to see. But at least I think for once I managed to really capitalize on a triple captain. Otherwise it generally you keep it for a double game week and then it just blows out. I mean, it doesn't really click. But fortunately, it happened to go in my favor last week.
Oh, it was a
Honestly, I've
banger of
never
a week.
remember any time like whenever we have kept when we have kept triple captain during double game week, it always fails.
Yeah.
Like whoever you keep it as double captain, it fails. It's not. It sounds like a very uh, really good strategy, but in real life, it fails.
Nice, nice. Yeah, Gavin, I mean, that was a banger of a week and great. Like most people, I think so, would be happy with that sort of a triple captain score in a double game week. You got it in a single objective achieved. You can put that chip behind you now. Just get on
absolutely,
with the
man.
rest of the season. And interestingly, Suraj is a Liverpool fan, but he went game week one without Salah, without Trent. There's just Jota in his team. I'm looking at it now. Uh,
Allison.
Hey, so Suraj, just wanted to also get an opinion on you on how do you think Liverpool season is going? How do you like Arne Slot's style of play? If you can give our viewers any sort of insights into how Liverpool are playing football, that will be awesome.
So Arne Slot's light is, I wouldn't say drastically different from what we had seen under the clock, but I would say he's a mixture between what we call Pep Guardiola and Klopp. So there is lot more build up. There's uh, a lot more passing happening. There's a lot more calmness in uh, in the team. So Klopp said that. Klopp said that I mean, Liverpool is a hard rock. His style was hard rock music kind of style. I
Yeah.
see Arne Slot's style as a house music.
Okay.
When you are listening to house music, it is slowly start, ta, 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 and then there's the crescendo, da, 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 like you get. So
Nice, nice,
that's how I
nice,
see it.
Yeah, dude. Great
nice.
analogy, bro. Yeah, awesome. Okay, guys. So with that, let's move on to one of the more interesting segments of our podcast, right? So, what is really, obviously, you guys have been playing around for well over 5, 7 years now. So, over the years, how has your philosophy shaped up, right? Like, what kind of a manager would you say you are? What approach do you take when you play FPL?
Um, I mean, for me, I've to be honest, I've never been a safe manager. I like taking that one odd. I think definitely more than that one odd risk. I've
Yeah,
always looked for that odd differential couple of players that you'd like to have in your team because that can really make a difference. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes if it doesn't, it really doesn't. So then you're
yeah,
really playing catch up. But yeah, I've never really been extremely safe, but I try to think as many games week as possible ahead. I'm not afraid of um, making my transfers every week instead of piling it up. For
Mhm.
like last season, you can only get maximum two. Now you can get five, but I'd like to actually see somebody that can get to 5, considering how the season's going. You know, because if somebody can manage to get to 5, it's as good as a wild card. You know,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that'll be quite an achievement. But I don't see myself going in that trajectory, because I kind of take it week to week. If I can get people in and out that help me on a game week, I mean, that's generally what I would do.
Fair enough. So you played like a T20, right? It's not really a
Yeah,
test match for you.
yeah.
And
How
how are
about you,
you
Suraj?
generally with
Sorry.
chips, Gavin? Do you always go early with chips, or do you plan a lot around chips? Do chips play a big factor
I
in how
I
you
I
allocate?
really I really take it as it goes. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think the triple captains, that's what I kind of saw, that I would play that early based on the fixture that we saw. Wild card and everything. I mean, I really see people going for that much earlier than planned this season, because a lot of people we thought in preseason would really be killing it, not quite doing that. So you don't want to be so far behind the game if you want to end up at the top of the table. So you really have to play it as it goes. Plus, you have a mystery chip now that nobody has any clue what is going to happen. So I don't really, I'm not afraid to use my chips if I feel that I need to change and better my squad.
Interesting you say that about mystery chip, Gavin. Would you and Suraj want to venture a guess what the chip might be? No?
No.
Well, if I were to take a bet, I'd say it's going to be a captain and vice captain score
I
double.
think I think that's
That's,
Oh,
possibly
I mean, if I had
something
to
that
take a
could happen.
guess, right?
Yeah.
that
What
sounds good.
wasn't there a thing with FPL last season where you could play weekly games and each week was a different
FPL
sort of
challenge.
like FPL
FPL
challenge,
challenge.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Any idea which chips were good in FPL challenge? Because I think they were just using that as a test bed for like new chips. And so if they found a good chip from amongst the FPL challenge, I think that might make it as one of the mystery chips.
So, Praveen, to be fair, I mean, please feel free to chime in, guys, if you all remember much about it. But I just played it for a couple of weeks, and I think some of the outstanding patterns were like they target fixtures, right? Like for instance, this week you have United and Liverpool. So typically in challenge, what will happen is you get double the points from players from the Reds, right? Like for instance. So
Okay.
or sometimes you'll have one that you can take five from one team, right? So like say you can take 5 players from Arsenal. So it was basically pretty random, and now I understand what you meant by they kind of used it as an experiment last year, right? So
Yeah.
to kind of even rope in managers who may not play the whole year, but you just want to log in, play it like a D11, play one game and just move on from there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
interesting. So Suraj, you've been pretty quiet. What is your FPL philosophy like? What kind
So
of player are you?
I'm actually anti than what Given does. I actually bank all the transfers and then I use it when I require it. So my strategy is more like, supposedly, if there is a player who is expensive and who is out of favor right now, like he's not in the form right now. Let's say, for example, if we consider Foden. Foden is 10.5 million, and there's some other 4.5 million defender I have. Now, if I want to get in Trent right now, I would wait for 2 weeks and then make the transfer where I can replace that Foden money with Trent and get someone who in midfielder who is consistently giving me 4 points also, because I know Trent will cover up for what Foden was missing on. So that's how I look at it. Like, I bank on it. And now, because of it is 5 times, I think I would bank as much I can. Right
Yeah.
now, I don't feel the need to make that many changes in the team. So I would rather bank it rather than use doing it week to week. Because
Hey
when you
Suraj,
do it week
admit
to
it,
week,
man. You just forget to make transfers, right? Just admit it. You just forget to make transfers, right?
yeah, yeah, just
Uh, and by the way, about Foden, right? So he actually had a price drop. He started the
yeah,
season with a 9.5, but now he's 9.4. So what you said is actually even more enticing now, right? I mean,
yeah,
that is obviously assuming you were not originally a Foden owner. But yeah, we'll get to some of that in the Bulls and Bears
No,
segment.
but Jay, what I realized this season, if you compare to the previous seasons, is the number of price rises just by game week 2 is incredible. You know, if you look at the previous seasons, the number of people that have gotten price rises and price drops, it's really been dynamic this season. So I think the FPL team is doing a fantastic job with that, keeping it really difficult to make sure you can get whatever players you really want in your team. They're making it difficult and making it really competitive, which is good. You know, nobody wants it easy. You know, if it was easy, we would have everybody in our team. You know, so
Exactly.
they're really making it fun and interesting this way. This is what I feel.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say, because Haaland started at 15 and he's already 15.1, right? I mean, that is just ridiculous. I mean,
after 2 game weeks, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. I mean, anyway, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah. So, Praveen, anything else you want to ask these guys before we dissect their teams and get into Bulls and Bears after that?
Let's get into the teams.
All right. So, guys, I think you two were amongst the highest scorers last week. So, Gavin got 80 points, obviously with the triple captain Haaland right there. And interestingly, Suraj got 87, right? Even without playing a chip. I think really interesting to see how Joao Pedro really clicked for him. Smith Rowe with that beautiful 10-pointer, right? So, I think a lot of things going in your favor. What do you guys want to talk
honestly,
about?
I'm extremely disappointed with my team because I honestly thought that I should have transferred out Isaac. I should have never taken Isaac. I should have known that he is a player who works when there's a momentum with him. And start of the season, he does not have that momentum with him right now. So yeah, I am not really that happy with Isaac. So, but I'll wait. I'll bank my transfer and remove him next week.
And what plans for Salah, Suraj? He's surely coming into your team, right? For game week 4 and 5.
I would see. I will wait till game week 4. Game week 5 is Man City versus Arsenal. So at that time, I could just remove. So you can't have Haaland and Salah together. That is too much. Then you have to. Then you are relying too much on players to perform. So I rather prefer that rather than just relying on two players. I divide whatever the transfer budget is available over there. So I want Salah in, but I would bet on him after game week 4 because Man City have West Ham and Brentford next. So I think Brentford is again a potential for Haaland hat trick, but let's see.
Yeah, that's really interesting because Salah's good fixture, as you rightly pointed out, are game week 4 and 5, right? They have
Yeah.
Nottingham and they have Bournemouth back to back at home, that too. So those could be ones to target. And if you had to make the move to Salah, Suraj, whom would you sacrifice from your team? Would it be a Foden or would it be a Saka?
I would say I would go for Haaland because I don't see him performing. So if we look at City's picture, Haaland as a player has operates in crescendos. Like when it is high, it is like again a lot of points. I do see him replicating the 2023 season numbers this time, but I feel that after the Arsenal game, he won't be scoring a lot, and the game after the Arsenal also he won't be scoring a lot. So yeah, that is somewhere I would bet on it, bet over it. And Foden and I would really prefer. I know that Foden, though his price has decreased by zero point 0.1, I feel Foden will be way more consistent going ahead. Against Arsenal, I see Foden scoring ahead of Haaland.
Nice, interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So, are y'all thinking of any potential transfers? I mean, depending, it doesn't have to be the exact transfer you guys are going to make, because let me again remind you all, this video is going to go live before the game week 3 deadline. So we're going to try and do that in this series going forward, right? So that people have some kind of insights, something to mess with their decision making, right? I mean, that's the only objective of this podcast. We want everyone to make bad decisions. But yeah. So any potential transfers you guys are thinking of?
I think
Um, yeah.
yeah, you can go ahead.
No, I mean, I was extremely happy with Haaland in my last game week, but honestly, based on the points you can see, the other guys got in. It started off great, and then it really went downhill from there because if I got 51 from one person to end up with 80 at the end of it, it really wasn't, all that great. Bruno definitely disappointed. Eze disappointed. So I did have quite a few disappointments over there. So, I mean, Crystal Palace are really going through a lot of changes in their squad. I don't think Manu have really found their groove yet with regard to who they want in their best positions. So for me, I'm possibly definitely thinking of getting those two out. As um, you know with Man City, it's with Pep, it's always very difficult to predict which players he'll have in his team. Because City have such a depth in their squad. It's always very difficult. Like right now, people are thinking for the defense. For example, Lewis, will he actually keep his place considering Kyle Walker's been on the bench? Kyle Walker's got a price drop. You know, and I think Lewis is almost going to be getting a price rise. People will rush for him, and definitely expect Pep to put one all over us and start Kyle Walker because I think I think that's what I've always suffered with City. So when I look at my team, I've through the years I've always wanted City because you want City players in your team because they fare brilliantly, but you're always trying to figure out which player do you get. So I think City selling Alvarez this season help because Haaland's starting is always going to be there. You're not going to rotate him, But Haaland being so expensive, also, that 2.5 more than Salah, that 2.5 can also help you really, really strengthen your midfield because you're putting all of your money on one person, which was my fear, to be honest with you, as before the season started, whatever drafts I had, I did not have Salah. I did not have Haaland at all in my draft. Haaland really came in, I think 2 days before the deadline because I saw that second gaming fixture. And I was like, okay, I need him for that. So I pretty much got him in for that. And because I saw my squad was definitely stronger with the Salah draft than with the Haaland draft because there was more money to spread around because you can make up for the difference of having multiple other variables and players rather than having to bank on only one person. So now it
Exactly.
worked for me last season with the triple captain, but if you look at it, Son, Palmer, Saka, Smith, I mean, all she has so many players that really, really fared well. So it really makes you think whether you should bank on Haaland or even if you don't have him, it's not. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. So I think those are important things to consider.
So it's
And
interesting you say that, Gavin, because the guy who finished FPL on overall rank 2 last year,
Yeah, he
right,
didn't have
globally,
Haaland.
he
I
didn't
remember
have
seeing
Haaland,
that.
right?
I
So yeah,
remember
I
seeing
mean,
that video.
so
Yeah,
it's
he
crazy,
actually
right?
went
There
through
are
the entire season without Haaland.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many ways to skin a cat, right? And obviously, I really like what you said about the 2.5, right? Because most people do agree that it's better to have one premium in your team because it kind of makes your captaincy a little easier. And that 2.5 is brutal, man. Because think about it, you can either have a 4.5 million defender, or you can have Trent Alexander-Arnold, right? And the difference is
True.
only picking between Salah and Haaland. But of course, I mean, like we just said, right? The paradoxical part is that there's no one way to skin a cat, and we do have people in our league who've gone without Salah and Haaland, right? Both for the first 2 game weeks,
And
and
I think that would
obviously,
be quite a crazy team because if you think about it, if you don't have a Salah and Haaland, I mean,
Yeah.
they would pretty much have what? Saka, Palmer, Son,
Anyone else they
Isak,
They'd
want.
have everyone else, man.
Watkins,
Anyone
They'd have
else they
Delhi,
everyone
want.
else in the game.
Vardy. So that also really works, because you're spreading your wings. You're getting as many points from everywhere as possible, rather than
Yeah.
banking on just one or two. Like, you look at Liverpool's fixtures. People wanted a Liverpool triple up, and as I said, I didn't have Haaland in my squad till 2 days before the season started, and I had a Liverpool triple up in my team, because their fixtures were just too good not to consider that. But yeah, yeah. I mean, it's that's I think that's the fun of the game, and with the change of the way the bonus system also works this season, it really makes you think which players you really want to have in your team. That's also very, very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Gavin, you mentioned that you're thinking of getting Eze and Bruno out. And are you thinking of like Salah, Son, Palmer, or are you thinking of going more mid-range and spreading the money out?
To be honest with you, I mean, Haaland was just too good to me to drop at the moment. So I really don't know what to do about that. With Bruno and Eze, getting both of them out, it allows me to go for, because it frees up a lot of money. So Palmer did really well, Son did really well, and so did Smith Rowe and Rogers. So I think finding a balance between that helps to even out the midfield, because I mean, as a Manchester United fan, I'd always love to have a Bruno or somebody in. I remember my very first draft based on United's preseason. I had Ahmad in my draft, because he
Right.
was really, really killing it in the preseason. And I
Yeah, he
thought
did
that
score,
would
right?
be
Yeah.
one hell of a differential to have. And I think he scored in our first game, so that was would have been a good choice if I went with it. But that's what I'm saying. I kind of try to go for those crazy differentials that people really don't go for. But yeah, I mean, that's how I think I can play with my team, and let's see how that goes.
Good on you, man.
Also, yeah, actually, you can experiment without having Salah and Haaland once you reach game week 7 8, because once you have game week 7 8, you have enough amount of data that okay, now
Right.
like you have enough data to know that this player is working. So let me get Salah out and get two players in. For example, if someone wants Bowen in, now no one expect, if I we take last year's example, no one expected Cole Palmer to give such a amazing return of investment, and the amount of I mean, the way Cole Palmer has played, no, he was for what 5.5, and it was the like the player which everyone had to have in their team, right? So I would say game week 10, you can take that risk of removing Haaland or Salah, or like that is something I believe that let's after game week 10, things change a lot. Then you can I mean, I've seen people who have 2 million left in their in their transfer budget, and they're playing with uh, uh, a lot of West Ham players, a lot of Brentford players, Visa, Bowen, and all those players who wouldn't cost you a lot.
I think Mohammad Kudus also, right, in those ranks.
Yeah.
Last year, what you mentioned. So I think, yeah, I mean, Cole Palmer, if I'm not mistaken, started at 5 and I think ended the season on way above 6 also, right? So this year they've more than doubled his starting price. So I think that's fair play to FPL for that. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
great.
think it brings back your Mahrez and Vardy. When they won the league, you find those gems. As I think this season possibly looks like a Rogers and a Smith. Because they're really, really cheap. And uh, have that potential to really give you those points. So I think everyone really needs to find that diamond in the rough, and figure out how they can go further on from there.
Absolutely, man. And as an Arsenal fan, it was really tough to watch Rogers really cut through our defense, right? I mean, he went to the Arsenal goal multiple times. I mean,
Yeah,
I think Raya was outstanding. I think one of the few game weeks where you actually expect Raya to get save and bonus points, right? Because typically Arsenal's defense is such that you hardly get any kind of save points, right? But I think full props to Raya there, who kind of really helped us with the clean sheet there.
yeah.
Great. So
I think
yeah.
Raya's played fantastically this season. I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly thought of I actually had an Arsenal defender in my game week 1, and I got him out for the City defender in the game week 2
Guardiola.
because
Yeah.
I expected Guardiola to get a clean sheet, and I did not expect Arsenal to have that clean sheet in game week 2. But Raya's been absolutely killing it right now.
Yeah.
And I made that transfer based on their fixtures, and figuring out that Aston Villa would really have something when they played Arsenal, but yeah, I guess I got that one wrong.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. So Praveen has been very kind to since we're talking so much about all the different teams. So Praveen has been really kind to pull up some stats, and credit goes to the FPL boys. Praveen will share their Twitter handle with us. So Praveen, over to you. Just take us through some of the stats you've got from game weeks 1 and 2.
Yeah, so I got this graphic from the FPL boys. You should definitely give them a follow on Twitter, X as it now called. And these are just a bunch of four United fans who are taking FPL very seriously, as it says in their bio. And they're the ones who basically compile those stats up there. So give that account a follow. Their handle is the FPL boys, and they've compiled this like neat little sort of like stats cheat sheet for us, right? And this is based off the last 2 weeks, and this sort of gives us some idea at a team level and at a player level that who are the players that we should maybe have our focus on right now, even if we are not going to transfer them in. I at least think we should start making plans to accommodate these sort of players into your team. So we can go through this one by one, and I think obviously XG numbers, Haaland just like jumps out over there, right? Already there is daylight between number one and number two, and you can see number two and number three is like pretty close. Jota, I think so. We expected that he would be amongst the goals for like Liverpool, but Garnacho is like interesting there, isn't he? And he's just come on as a sub, I think so, twice, if I'm not wrong.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And just in the two subs, if he's gotten 1.4. And Gavin, like, what's happening with United there? Do you think that Garnacho has like a starting place, or is that Ahmad's at the right and he has to sort of win it back from him now?
No, I think honestly, Garnacho's best place is on the left, so that's Rashford. So I
Right.
think um, you need Eric Ten Hag to get a little gutsy and play Manu's best winger, which is Garnacho. Rashford has really not been doing well, and to be honest, at this point of time, um, United's best forward three would be Garnacho on the left, Xerxes up front, and Amar on the right. So if he really needs to put Rashford on the bench and make him earn his spot, because I think Garnacho and Amar have been doing fantastically. Since I think the second half of last season. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
they
So do
deserve
you
that
think
starting
uh,
spot based on their performance.
Yeah.
like do you
And
think Rashford is being started just because he has somewhat of pull behind him,
100%.
like somewhat of power behind? Like by pull, I mean that because he is one of the most I would say the most experienced forward over there. That's the reason he's just being put out there. Though performance doesn't reflect to that.
Yeah, so that's the
I
problem. I mean, Eric Ten Hag, if you even look at the defense, we brought in Dillett for the defense, but he still started with Maguire, and you want that highlight with Maguire, you don't really get that. So I really hope when we play Liverpool on the weekend, he starts with Dillett and Martinez to give us that high line defense, which will really help. Fortunately, Casemiro has been playing well this season. Otherwise, if he wasn't, I mean, we just signed a fantastic defensive midfielder, and I would have loved to see him get into the starting lineup. But hopefully, coming off the bench would really help as well.
So
Nice.
why do you think Eric Ten Hag with certain players is able to take the tough decisions, but with certain players like Rashford, he took tough decisions with Maguire, but I don't know why he's not able to take tough decisions with Rashford or and even Bruno Fernandes for that matter.
See, Bruno is somebody that can change the game at any point of time. And um, I think he has more ability to do that than Rashford. But Rashford also does have the ability to really change a game. Like you look at last season, the goal he scored against City was unbelievable, and that came out of nowhere. Nobody expected him to score that from that range, so he does have that, but I don't think Rashford has the momentum that he had when he had the brilliant season. When we had the front three that scored brilliantly, all 20 plus goals. But I think there's definitely pressure from within to make sure that Rashford is played. He's a homeboy. He's from the youth setup. So that there's as any job, there's always internal politics that pull strings and all of that. So that's why I said Ayrton really needs to put his foot down, and select the capable 11 rather than the few players that he's forced to play. Is my opinion.
Yeah, and overall as well, I think United attack has been clicking, I would say, in the first two games. Limited sample size, but we can see that best XG per 90 for teams. United are third right there. So something is clicking in that attack. Um, and let's see if it continues. Just move on to a next one, right? If you see, like, where are you going to get most of your assists from? Trent as the midfielder is there, as a defender, right? So you have a defender there, you have a midfielder,
I think
and
Trent
then
as a midfielder is also correct to say because
fair,
Absolutely, yeah.
it's right in there.
fair, right? And if you compare that XA statistic with the best XGC per 90 for teams, right, which tells you that that Liverpool have conceded, like, their expected goals conceded has been the least. So just
Yeah.
like what Suraj mentioned, they moved on from Klopp's like hard rock football to sort of like slightly more control, and that is reflecting in their XGC numbers as well. So I think Trent becomes a sort of like, if you're high up on the chances for attacking output, plus if your team is well placed for getting clean sheets, that Trent is starting to become a sort of like a
Yeah.
no-brainer. If
So
in
one
the,
thing which Arne Slot has taken from Klopp is making Trent complete like proper inverted fullback. So he does
right,
invert a lot inside. He comes into the midfield. He goes forward, and he does all the things which he is not as much as involved, which he was under the Klopp, but he's still inverting a lot. And you can see that okay, now we the expectation is that okay, Robertson will cover up the defense more, but I see if you see that Trent is inverting a lot over here.
right,
No, I'm actually surprised not to see Robertson there because I remember seeing some of the videos where they showed the heat map, and I think that's there on the FPL hub as well. Where it really shows how Robertson has really been getting into good spaces, and has that potential, possibly to even rival Trent at this point of time. So I think Robertson is also a fantastic an option and a pick considering he's cheaper as well and a way into Liverpool's defense.
yeah, that's
Also, one
interesting.
thing I would like to mention is that if this season Jota remains if he does not get a lot of injuries, I can see him being among top three point getter in midfield.
But where do you see Chiesa play now? Now since you have signed him, I think that's going to be uh, the biggest question mark because I think that
Yeah,
that was a steal of a transfer that they just pulled off.
yeah.
Right.
I'm honestly extremely excited about Chiesa. What my see, I don't see him as a replacement for Salah in long term, but I see him as a someone who is like when we had Jordan Shaqiri and when we had Minamino, or even Divock Origi for that matter. He is slightly
Ah,
above in terms of quality compared to these three, but I don't see him with on the level of Mane, Salah. Maybe because maybe this my judgment is clouded because of the his recent season and his amount of injuries he had. But I do with the amount of money which we have invested, and I see him working for Liverpool, but I don't see him working as good as our current five forwards which we already have. He will be the sixth choice forward.
yeah, I think Chiesa is a steal. Uh, I think his transfer value is almost as much as Salah's FPL team value, which
Hmm.
is which is a joke basically to get
Yeah.
a player of that high caliber at that sort of like money. I think Liverpool got a really good deal there, and one advantage of Chiesa is that I think he can play anywhere across the front three,
Exactly.
left, front or on the right. So and I'm just wondering whether that means either Darwin Nunes or Gakpo or one of them might be going out as well last few days. There have been
So
some
there are
rumors.
rumors, right? Nunes is linked to Arsenal. I hope that's a rumor, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, even
disturbing
I hope
rumors.
that.
disturbing rumor.
Oh boy. No, no, I remember recently reading an article that I think Virgil van Dijk will be extremely happy to have Chiesa in his team because the last time they played for their countries, I think Chiesa just walked past him, you know. So
Right.
he'll be really happy that they're on the same team right now.
Yeah, yeah. And last thing to touch upon in this stats cheat sheet, I think the whipping boys are starting to emerge, right? If you look at the bottom right, you have the teams that are worst for like XGC. And already Ipswich Town, who are expected to be there, are there. A few surprises there, of course. I think Everton were pretty good, solid last year. But this year, first two games, I think they've looked pretty poor defensively. So, they're
Hmm.
ones to target. And Newcastle had sort of slipped away in their defensive performance last year compared to the season before that. And maybe that trend is continuing, although it could be clouded by the fact that one of the games they got a red card. So that
Yeah,
could have influenced their higher XGC as well. But definitely, I think so. Ipswich and Everton are one to keep note of or one to target.
no doubt. And Praveen, that red card was for Fabian Schär, right? So when you
Right.
lose such an
Yeah,
influential centre back, obviously that impacted even Isaac's output. It impacted their whole, XGC as well. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
Okay, guys, so that brings us to the Bulls and Bears section. So this is something we started last week, and I thought this would be something that we could do pretty much before every deadline, right? So as always, I have picked up the top 10 most transferred in players. Obviously, the second half hat trick by Madueke puts him right on top of that list, and we also have the top 10 most transferred out players. Just to clarify on the definitions and slight changes that we made this week as opposed to last is that what we're going to do is essentially all the highest transferred in players, right? They would typically fall in the right half of this quadrant, of the right half quadrants. So that would essentially be these two blocks over here, and the most transferred out players would be in the two blocks on the left, right? Now, based on our assessment, we'll classify them as in the top half if they are bulls, right? What we expect the kind of players to give us good upsides, and if they're in the bottom half, they're going to be bears. Again, standard disclaimer as we had even last time. This is just the panel's opinion over here, and I'm sure there'll be a fair bit of disagreements for some of the picks, even amongst the panel, right? So, by no means whatsoever is this set in stone. This is just our going in opinion. So, all the best for your game week 3 transfers. Don't hold us accountable if it goes horribly wrong.
And just to add
Okay,
to that, new information could come in, somebody could get injured, so things can change
exactly.
than what we're saying here.
Absolutely, Praveen. So, guys, starting off with Madueke, he scored a second half hat trick, as you know, last week, and obviously Wolves looked really, really out of sorts over there. But the panel over here are going in views that he might actually be a trap, right? Or he might actually be a bear. Simply because Chelsea have way too many players, in terms of starts, in terms of who's really going to get rotated. So I personally think he's a trap. What do you guys think?
No, definitely. I think Chelsea are becoming the new City with regard to who are they going to start with. You had Nkuku, who was a guaranteed starter and pretty much in so many FPL teams based on preseason performance, but then
Right.
was nowhere when the season started. So I think it was the manager's comments. I think in the midweek game about Madueke about he needs to kind of show himself and perform better. I think that's what probably motivated him to really give it his all. But with the kind of options that Chelsea have, um, definitely you're not going to drop him in game week 3. But how
Right.
long will he be able to sustain and be in the team? It's a question mark.
Fair
So
enough, Kevin.
my point of view in this is that Maduiki for now is a trap, but you have to give him the attention which has been given to him, right? He garners this attention because he scored 3 goals. He scored a hat trick, and
Yeah.
a player who scores a hat trick is definitely who people that player will definitely grab people's attention. For now, we can put him in trap, but he has the potential to be in punt and probably maybe move to raging bull as well. But for now, I wouldn't I wouldn't punt on this particular player. I would say.
I'm
Fair enough.
actually of a slightly different opinion. Yeah. How do you drop a guy who has just scored a hat trick? Right. So I think at least for like next 2 or 3 games, I think Madueke is going to get his shot. After that, considering Chelsea's size, nobody knows. But the next three
Fair enough.
fixtures are Palace at home, Bournemouth away, West Ham away. Not bad.
Yeah, right for picking, no doubt.
Yeah,
I
short
think,
term
but you
definitely.
also you also have to look at momentum. So he's definitely starting game week 3, but after game
Correct.
week 3, then is the international break.
Right.
Yes.
So whether he plays or not for England during the international break, that will also take a toll on what happens in game week 4, because momentum is also a major defining factor and how he performs in the next game as well. So he's definitely not getting dropped for the next game week, but
Right.
it is going to be a challenge to live up to a hat trick. I mean, you definitely can't put him in the Haaland category where Haaland will score a hat trick this week, and again next week if he has a team capable of scoring a hat trick, he will. You know,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I think definitely Maniku is not at that level. But
Yeah,
yeah, it'll be
definitely.
interesting.
And he's also just 6.5, right? So you're not investing also a lot in him like a Haaland. So at 6.5, if somebody was on Nkunku, I would immediately jump onto Madueke. They saw something about Chelsea's fixtures when they got Nkunku on their team. I think
Exactly.
just go a
Yeah, but
simple
unfortunately,
transfer.
Nkuku's value dropped, and then everybody was stuck.
Yeah.
So he had to
Oh
make
yeah,
2 transfers to get him in, unless he had money in the bank.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So, lesson for you kids: try to keep point 0.5 in your bank at the start of the season. You never know when you might need it. And
Yeah,
this is like a textbook case for that, right?
yeah,
It's a
and
straight like for like transfer. Yeah.
And Madueke also went down in price after game week 1. He's
Yeah.
then gone up 0.1 again because of his hat trick. So
Yeah.
there's a small window where you could have gone 6.4 to 6.4, I guess.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, moving on to Isaac, one of the most transferred out, in fact, the most transferred out player this game week. I personally am still bullish on him because we know his quality. We know how he absolutely smashed it in the latter half of last season. People are probably transferring out because, of course, the disappointment with game week 1 and 2. But personally, I would still hold him. I would say he's a good punt. You can still hold on to him for a couple of more game weeks at least, and then of course you have very obvious transfers towards Havertz or Muniz or Chris Wood. Now that Nketiah has not gone to Nottingham Forest, in fact he's gone to Crystal Palace, so that possibly means better minutes for Wood. But yeah, let's let's stick to Isaac for now. What do you guys think? Is he a punt or a flop? Clearly, he's not a raging bull or a trap, according to me.
I feel Isak is a trap. I I honestly looking at the two Newcastle games.
Yeah,
He did give an assist in the first game, but
yeah,
in second game which was against Bournemouth, I really didn't see him doing a lot over there. I feel once he has this momentum, he can be a great punt, but currently he does not have that. And next, they are facing Spurs. Uh, Again, Spurs defense is quite meh. It's not that good Spurs defense, but I honestly I would rather if someone I wanted from Newcastle, I would prefer Gordon over Isak.
okay. What about you, Gavin, Praveen? What do you guys say?
No, I definitely think Isaac needs to get a few more game weeks to really kick it into gear. I
Yeah,
mean, um, as Suraj said, he needs that momentum, he needs that time. I think that the Spurs defense is actually stronger, in my opinion, compared to what Suraj is trying to say. I don't think that Isak would have an easier time against them, but I think Isak definitely deserves to stay in a few teams, a little more patience, definitely more patience than people that had Nkuku.
yeah, fair enough. What
Yeah,
about
he's
you,
an
Praveen? I believe you're also an Isaac owner. What is your take on
yeah.
Isaac?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was super bullish on him before the season started, right? But I am starting to lose my patience now. And if only Watkins had shown some hint of a form in the
Yeah.
first two game weeks, I think I would have pulled the trigger for Isak
Wow.
to Watkins in this week itself. But
Wow.
because I haven't seen, Watkins also play that great, I'm sort of just sitting on the fence one game week more, and then let's carry the transfer into the international break and uh, let's see what we can
Assess
do
at
with
that
two
point. Yeah,
transfers. Yeah.
makes sense. Okay, I think everyone's favorite boy, Smith Rowe. I'm personally very bullish on him. He's for a reason. He's one of the most transferred in players this game week. What do you guys feel?
No, definitely, definitely. I mean, he's. I mean, even against United, he showed how he connects well with the overlapping wing backs. With Muniz up front. He really controlled the midfield well, and well deserved got his goal in the second game week to give 10 points. So I think he's that. In my opinion, the diamond in the rough. Him is um, one of the options for that.
Fair
And
enough.
I'm extremely bullish on Smith Rowe because he has a point to prove right now. I would say he was in contention with Martinelli before he got injured, right? He was there. He was fighting with Martinelli all the time for that position. But after that injury, he went out of favor, and now he has this point to prove at Fulham that hey, I am a quality player. I deserved to start at a good level. So I feel that I am very bullish on Smith Rowe.
Right.
Yeah, I think the others have covered it pretty well. And the manager, Marco Silva, also spoke very highly of Smith Rowe, said that he's getting fitter, his ability to arrive in the box to score those goals.
Yeah.
He talked about that. So both the manager and the player are thinking of his role as a goal scoring midfielder. At 5.5, I
Yeah.
don't think there's too much to think at this point in time. If you're looking
No,
to create
no doubt
funds,
about
I think he's a no brainer.
that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think he's
Moving
at a
on to,
price rise as well, right?
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, he
I
is
mean,
going towards the price rise.
Yeah. So up next we have Solanke, who unfortunately got injured after game week 1. And I mean, of course, that also led to Son playing as striker, right? And he absolutely smashed it. So, kudos to those guys who had Son right there. Personally, I don't think Solanke is really a bad, person to have, especially, given that we're going to have the international break just a matter of time before he's back. So that's why I've personally classified him as a punt. But I can understand, those of you who have owned him who might think he's a flop. But yeah, what is your take on Solanke, guys?
I
I
think he's still
I
flagged in FPL. So he still shows up as like injured. So unless
Yeah,
Ange gives some comment saying that Solanke has recovered or he's back in training, I think I would just sell for somebody else right now.
fair
No,
enough.
and if he was 5 or 5.5 million, you can carry him. But 7.5, I mean that's a lot
Yeah,
of money, right?
exactly. I mean, yeah, that is half the price you need for Haaland, right? So yeah, that is a lot of money. Yeah, right. Okay. I think Welbeck was another guy who really shone last week, but just the fact that you have Pedro at a very similar price, who's also on penalties, and I just think until I see a few more matches where because Welbeck really blows hot and cold, right? So unless I see him consistent, I'm going to consider him as a trap. I'm sure you guys might have a different point of view, though.
yeah, I consider him as a punt because 5.5. Either, I mean, you can consider both Welbeck and Pedro as punt, right? It is Brighton right now. Brighton has that momentum. Everything is working in Brighton's favor. So I see Welbeck as a punt rather than a trap because I do feel that there is still some little bit more goals than Brighton as entirely as a team. Now the outlet either can be Welbeck or Pedro or any other player, but there are goals and assists in Welbeck. I do see him as a player who I'll take punt on.
Fair enough.
I
What
think
about you, Gavin?
I think with Welbeck, um, the problem with Brighton, I think Brighton itself is a trap because they have so many wingers. I mean, they've got a new manager and he has a different style of playing, and he focuses on the wings. And the number of players that they've gotten in, I think they've had a fantastic summer transfer season. Um, if I had to choose between a Pedro and a Welbeck, the only reason I would choose a Pedro is because he is capable of playing as a nine, false nine, and a 10. Whereas Welbeck is purely your out and out striker. And if all of them are on the pitch, Pedro takes penalties. So
Exactly.
with Welbeck really performing, you can't drop him. He is possibly in that punt category, not particularly a trap category. But I think the trap is because Brighton have so many options. I think that's the only problem there.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
I sort of agree with Jay here. I mean, over the seasons we've seen Welbeck, right? He blows hot and cold. He has his moments. How much can you trust him? And at the same price, you get a João Pedro, who's probably also on penalties as well, right? And the other excellent point that Gavin brought up is that João Pedro can play anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like he has more chances of like starting at this point in time. Plus, you don't know if Brighton might sign somebody as well to compete with Welbeck for that number 9 spot. So for me, he does feel a little trappy given by his previous seasons. But if he continues to score more, we can change our stance on
Yeah.
that, obviously.
Fair enough. The next guy who's brought in a lot of pain to a lot of us. Although to be fair, Eze has been fairly unlucky, where with a couple of controversial decisions going against him. So I would say he's still a punt, right? I mean, although he's being transferred out en masse, I still feel he's worth holding on. I mean, but yeah, my patience is running thin, and now that you have guys like Rogers, you have guys like Emil Smith Rowe. You have, of course, Madueke, people who are definitely cheaper than Eze, right? So that is why I would personally say hold on to Eze. Don't give up on him. He just one penalty or, one match away from, a good haul. But obviously, I can imagine if you guys have completely different point of view here.
No. I mean, you look at his shots on target that he had,
Yeah,
or shots in total. He had
right.
quite a few shots in the first
Yeah,
two game weeks. He's just really unlucky that he's had zero returns. If you compare him with some of the other midfielders, I think he needs to be given that patience. I think they play Chelsea next, and I don't think that's particularly great for him. But after that, I think Eze will definitely rack in the goals and assists.
yeah, yeah. That's the hope. Fingers crossed there.
Yeah, and also that Palace have now signed Nketiah, right? So,
Yeah,
that could maybe they form a good partnership as they starts feeding a lot of goals to Nketiah, vice versa could happen. So that's definitely one to watch out for. If you are an Eze owner right now, I don't think like I would sell. I think it's definitely worth a hold. If you have other fires to put out in your team, then you should just like leave him alone for the time being.
yeah. And also, Praveen, this might sound counterintuitive, but if Eze was priced at a 6.5, right, I'd probably be more keen on selling him off than at a 7, because what happens is even after a price drop, right, he might go to a 6.9 or 6.8, but that still gives you the leeway to buy people who started at 6.5, right? Like even if Madueke by then is say a 6.8, it's still okay. So, I like to consider some of these players as, buffer players, right? There are many banks,
Right.
they can help you transition to a slightly cheaper player, right? Or if you're lucky enough to have a point 0.5 in your bank, then it just makes things easier. So yeah, I mean, just one of the, I
Yeah.
just thought that's a slightly controversial take on, I'm keeping him because he's more expensive than, I would like him to be. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Last week's assist hero, right? Cole Palmer. I don't think we're going to have too much of a debate on this. I think the only thing keeping a
Yeah,
lot of us off him is his price, right? That's a very, very painful
yeah,
price to deal with. Yeah.
I think the problem was his preseason. He didn't have a preseason, so that's what actually personally got me off Cole Palmer, because when I
Yeah.
started creating my team, he was one of the first few names in it. You know, and it's only when I realized that he was not playing any of the preseason, I was not sure if he'll start game week one
Yeah.
and two. You know,
Yeah.
his price really was not too much of a factor, but the fact that he's in the team and he's really performing brilliantly, 100% a raging bull.
Yeah,
Fair
nothing
enough.
much to
I mean,
add
there's
there.
nothing to add either. Yeah,
Moving on to really an unfortunate disappointment, right? In terms of minutes, in terms of returns, and ironically, this guy has been scoring for fun in the preseason, in the midweek game also, not in the EPL, right? He won a penalty, he scored it. So yeah, I mean, he's been a real bad flop as far as the numbers go, right? Maybe not in terms of I mean, let's give him credit for his effort, his presence, but unless you are racking in those 70-80 minutes a match at the very minimum, giving us the FPL returns, unfortunately we're going to call you a flop, my friend. And I even
I,
named my team after him, so yeah, there you
I think he needs a box outside these four boxes. That's how bad it's been. I mean, I really
go.
pity people that got. I think the first game week he was brought out on 59 minutes, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
So I think
58,
that one minute killed the 1 point, and then the second game week was just the nail in the coffin.
yeah. And yeah, I think he's earned a price drop. Yeah, let's not spend too much time on Haaland. I think the only thing keeping people off Haaland is probably going to be that exorbitant price with a plus point one, right? I mean, that is just brutal. But yeah, I think given the fact that they play West Ham next, and I don't think West Ham is in a particularly great defensive shape. I think I can understand why a lot of people are still moving towards Haaland. And I guess, obviously, guy scores a hat trick, and a lot of times people tend to chase last week's points in FPL, right? That doesn't usually work out well. But I mean, psychology and the herd brain is always going to follow the guy who's scored the points. That's why you'll see Madueke and Haaland, amongst those transferred in guys there. Any contrarian views on this, guys? Anyone who thinks he's a trap or a punt at this stage? I don't think so. I mean,
I
definitely
can't
one
I
of the
can't
best
afford to
triple
say that
captains.
after the last game week.
Oh yeah, Gavin, you being a United fan have told me about how you wanted to triple up on Liverpool, how you triple captained Haaland. So yeah, I mean, I can see United fans doing these kind of things in FPL just means that there is credit to the player. So yeah,
Yeah.
all personal biases aside. Yeah. Foden, of course, Suraj owns Foden in his team, and I would say he's still a punt. Let's not write him off just yet. He was
I
down with
I
illness.
honestly I honestly think he should be in the Raging Bull category. I honestly feel once I think that if he starts this week, he'll definitely be scoring or assisting.
Yeah.
I I believe that he should be in the Raging Bull category. It's so if even it's in punt he can be in punt category, but I feel he's a Raging Bull because just consider what he has done last season, and again what he has done for England, and
Yeah.
considering all these things, he's there. He's just a start away from covering up for like the point one drop which he had.
Yeah, I would agree there, Suraj. And see, the reason I put him as a punt is because obviously he's not one of the most transferred in players, right? So the right half
Yeah,
of this is people who are transferred in. I agree, the nomenclature might be a little confusing. Why these guys are called punts
yeah,
and why are these guys called raging bulls? End of the day, we agree that all of these guys are by and large bulls, right? They are going to give us
yeah,
an upside. It's just that, as you rightfully mentioned, right? I mean, Foden was down with illness, didn't start, and consequently, people have transferred him out. I think that's the only reason why I would say that he's a punt. But yeah, I agree. That's not really a very accurate terminology there. But yeah, I think by and large, Foden, as you rightfully said, he's just a couple of starts away from returning. And obviously, what you mentioned that you would actually bank on Foden getting the goals over Haaland, right, versus certain types of teams. And I tend to
yeah,
agree with you over there, and that has happened in the past as well. So, moving on, João Pedro, I think we did speak a lot about him. I have put him as a trap. I'm going to be honest here. I've never had good luck with João Pedro in the past, right? So that is pretty much the only reason. Obviously, he has all the technical skills to be a really good FPL asset. So I think he could very well be a raging bull. I think it's just a matter of minutes and just a matter of Brighton themselves, finding a bit of form. Very interesting to
yeah,
see. I think a lot of FPL outlets in Brighton. I think you've got Minte who's doing well. Of course, you've got Mitoma who's pretty much that mid-price category legend already in FPL, right? So I think it should be a very interesting way forward in terms of Brighton, and I do hope they do well, and Pedro should be amongst the points if Brighton as a team do well, right? So, what are your takes on João Pedro?
Yeah, I think
I feel
I'm excited about João Pedro as a player, but Brighton face the top 7 teams of last year in their first 11 fixtures.
Right.
So I am how good are Brighton going to be against these top 7 consistently? They've just played one out of the two, United. They have
Yes.
Arsenal, they have Chelsea, Spurs, Newcastle, Liverpool, Man City, all coming up in the next 9 fixtures. So, just the fixtures sort of put me off Brighton attackers at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very fair call, Praveen. And I didn't know they're actually facing the top 7, right? So in the next, first 11. So yeah, I think that's an eye opener for me as well. And I guess that kind of, becomes more of a wait and watch for Brighton as a whole. It's not just about the player, right? It's about the team. Barco, of course, I think last week also we had Barco as part of this because people are obviously shipping him out en masse, right? I mean, you get transferred out of the league, you're pretty much going to be transferred out. Luckily, I don't think he is likely to face a price drop just because of the way FPL is configured when a player is locked for price drops. But yeah, I mean that does occupy one of your bench spots, so that is something to look out for those of you who still might be holding on to Barco. I think a lot of you, a lot of us have alluded to Rogers before. I think really brilliant value at 5 million, and to be fair, he really had me worried against Arsenal last week. Any of you guys have a contrarian take on Rogers and where I've classified him?
No, I think
No, definitely not.
I, I think at his price he's really good. And we saw against Arsenal that he's a good football player. Is he going
Yes.
to be a great FPL asset? Might be, we have to wait and see. But I think so at 5 million, you don't need to worry too much. If he's not delivering, just put him in your bench.
Exactly. What about Gavin, Suraj? What do you guys think about Rogers going forward?
No, I think
I'm
Rogers has had a very good preseason. He had a very good first 2 game weeks. Just unfortunate not to get on the score sheet. Um, I think Aston Villa's fixtures coming up are really good. So anybody that has him in their team, definitely keep him there because it will pay off definitely.
Right.
I think Rogers for at least next 5 to 6 game weeks is a a really good option. My problem arises when the Champions League starts. I don't think Aston Villa is equipped enough to have a squad which can cope up with Premier League as well as Champions League. So that I think after that there will be a drop in almost all the Aston Villa players. That's a feeling which I have.
And we saw
No, but
something similar with
in that
Newcastle, right?
situation, I think Rogers would fare better because you would expect an Ollie Watkins to be your out and out striker for the Champions League, and that would only benefit Rogers in that striker role for the Premier League. So I think it can work that way as well.
That's interesting. Okay, let's quickly go through the rest. I think we just spoke about Watkins. I think he's not really, not really someone you want to ignore or take with a pinch of salt too soon. What I'm going to do is I'll just quickly pull out the remaining six, starting with Faiz, of course, who scored a goal. Bruno, who Gavin spoke about a little earlier. Raya, Garnacho, Romero, and Guardiola. So yeah, I mean, any quick thoughts, comments on these guys before we wrap up for today?
I would agree with most of the things which we have done, but I would just move Guardiola to Raging Bull because I think Guardiola is one player who is definitely going to start almost all the games for City. And and last week, the only reason last week Guardiola they didn't get the I mean, they didn't do. People are pampering out Guardiola's because last week it was uh, again Ipswich. Ipswich got lucky with a goal. That's it. I don't think any other reason Guardiola should be transferred out.
Suraj,
Guardiola should
so
be reachable.
Suraj, again, the only reason he's not in the Raging Bulls category is because he's amongst the top 10 transferred out players. That's all. I mean,
Yeah.
just that's the nomenclature. But yeah, but I agree with you. And also one interesting thing, if you'd have noticed in that match, I think it was Rico Lewis who was going more advanced than Guardiola, right? So now, of course,
Yeah.
that could be because Ipswich is a relatively easier team. But we'll have to wait and see how it goes for the other fixtures.
I think another reason Lewis was weighing ahead was because Guardiola is better defensively. So
Yeah,
I think that was possibly tactical that let Lewis go forward because Guardiola can cover defensively better because he's a much stronger defender, much better defender.
fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Raya is classified well there, primarily because he's got like two sort of tough fixtures coming up there, right?
Exactly.
Spurs away and like City away. So you could get an immediate clean sheet, but after that, we don't know. But by far, there's no doubt about it that Arsenal are the best defense in the league
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
So maybe perhaps wait a bit if you can wait for Raya for like a few weeks before getting him in. And yeah, Bruno. I think if I had Bruno, I would still hold on because he's getting a lot of chances, even scoring and assisting chances as well. So I would maybe put him in the punt category there.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. And of course, Romero, right? I think he scored a goal last week, so immediately he's amongst the top few transferred players in there. But yeah, I would personally steer clear. I think Mickey Van der Ven or Pedro Porro should be. I should not say should be, but I mean they could be your go-to Spurs assets from the defensive perspective. And the only reason I've put Raya in the bottom half is because I think, as Praveen said, right, they've got City and Spurs coming up next, and not only that, I think having a goalkeeper from Arsenal really locks in one precious third spot that you will eventually need, right, as the fixtures turn, or some kind of budget options emerge over there. And another reason is the fact that I mean, obviously, people are getting carried away because Raya got a lot of bonus points last week, right? The first two game weeks, but typically you would not expect that, right? Arsenal being one of the least expected goals conceded team, you would also expect Raya to get very few save and bonus points in general, right? And in fact, it's very dangerous to have goalkeepers of such teams like Edison in the past, right? Because you're hardly going to get any points apart from the clean sheet, and then all it takes is like one random goal from a team like Ipswich, and that's pretty much the end of your game week, right? From that defender perspective. So yeah, I guess team, that brings us to the end of the Bulls and Bears segment for this week. I hope you guys are enjoying this format. Any quick closing comments from the panel here before we call it a wrap?
It was just great fun catching up with you too, Suraj and Gavin. Great to see this Liverpool perspective and the United perspective come in. So glad to have you guys on the show. Hopefully, we can do it again sometime.
Oh, sure, definitely.
Hey, thanks a lot, Suraj. I think Gavin has just dropped out. But yeah, I think it was really great having you guys over. Let me see if I can add Gavin quickly. And yeah,
Let's do one prediction as well. Like, what is your prediction for United versus Liverpool?
I think it's going to
Oh,
be Liverpool, man. And since Gavin is not yet joined in, right, I think Liverpool's going to win. Gavin, man, can you hear me?
yes, yes, I heard that. I heard that loud and clear.
Oh, snap. This is going to go in the
My
blooper reel then.
my connection came back just in time.
Hey, bro, land your plane properly. Huh? You can do this later.
I think Liverpool too. Slightly edging it.
Slightly edging it, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I
Gavin,
think
what is your take on Liverpool United?
I think Liverpool are extremely strong, but considering how tight Manu have been playing this season, they're definitely stronger in the midfield. They've been playing possession well, although Liverpool possession is better. Um, I would not be surprised.
I think we lost Gavin there
Yep,
again.
we've lost him again. Yeah.
It's okay. His last words will remain unsaid.
we shall see. We shall see, right? This weekend. Hey, okay, guys.
Okay,
Thanks so
guys.
much.
Great.
And it's a wrap.
Okay.
Cheers. Peace.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.